Today on CityCast Seattle, we are blessed to be in the midst of a bagel renaissance in Seattle right now. And here to discuss Seattle's food scene are two of the most seasoned carb reviewers in town. With us today is Sean Keeley, writer of the newsletter It's a Shanda, and Zoe Kahn of Zoe in Seattle, who recently collaborated with Hey Bagel for her very own schmear flavor, fried shallot and chive, which is available until the end of the month. So to kick things off, I wanted to ask, Zoe, what is your go-to bagel order?
Oh, good question. So I do really love a poppy seed, especially at Hey Bagel. They have flaky sea salt in their poppy seed, as I'm sure Sean can attest to. It is a well above average poppy seed bagel. And I think it often gets overshadowed by the everything bagel. So I usually gravitate towards a poppy seed with flaky sea salt, ideally. And then I typically go for a lox schmear, something that incorporates lox in the schmear.
Maximalist. Okay. What about you, Sean? I have a guess based on what your reviews have said, but
Yeah, I have come to really appreciate a good sesame bagel, especially if the sesame seeds are toasted. But ultimately, if I'm going to a bagel place, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to get an everything bagel with scallion cream cheese, if they have it, and if they don't, something approximating that.
oh man, that sounds so good. And I think that's actually the exact thing that I got last time I was at Hey Bagel. So it's a great
Can't go
order.
wrong.
Both couple of great orders there. Okay, so Zoe, I know you've been on the hunt for the best sandwich in town. Sean, if folks are not familiar with your work, you've reviewed dozens of bagel spots. I want to know from both of you, how would you all characterize the bread carb scene here in Seattle?
I would say that if we're just talking about bagels, let's say, there's always going to be a stigma that it's New York and everything else, and there's some truth to that in certain ways that I'm sure we'll get into. I would say that Seattle has a legitimate bagel scene, and the quality of the bagels that people are doing and the work they're doing is among the highest I've seen. I've had the opportunity to taste bagels all over the country and beyond that. And some of my favorites are still here, and I think it's a testament beyond the bagels to the bakeries and the bread makers and all the people working in that field here. The quality of the ingredients they're using, it's all making for a really spectacular scene.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think there is so much care for bagels here. And I think, when I'm talking to some of my East Coast friends and I say, Seattle has had like a bagel renaissance, they kind of chuckle. But if you've been here for the last decade, you know that that is true, because we went from there being very few, there was Altana, Blazing Bagels, but there weren't many. And now I feel like if you gave me a neighborhood, I could tell you a bagel shop within that vicinity that you should go and hit up and you would get a quality bagel.
Totally. Yeah, I also moved here a little more than a decade ago and kind of found the same thing. Like, there were a few bagel spots in town. They scratched the itch when you needed to have a bagel. But I feel like really, especially since 2020, it seems like there's just been this explosion of bagels in town, and of bakeries in general, and like places that are really trying to do kind of a East Coast deli style sandwich as well. I don't know if you all have noticed the same thing.
I would love to see more delis. I feel like there is still not a place where I can walk up and get, a quarter pound of chicken salad and a sandwich on a Kaiser roll. Like, that is not, maybe that is just too extreme of an East Coast version of a deli, but I think we have room to grow there.
I think what we've seen so far is a lot of people getting into the bagel space who are very focused, not just great bagels, but being focused on, we're going to do 5 or 6 things really well. And that's what we're going to focus on. And so, we haven't quite seen as that many of people coming in and being like, we're going to recreate the entire Jewish delicatessen experience yet. There's a couple places in town. For the most part, we have a very focused group of people who are trying to make the best version of the thing that they're making.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when we end up talking about bagels or sandwiches, a lot of the discourse centers around the East Coast, which, is not a surprise. I feel like the New York deli scene is very much the prototype for like what a good sandwich is for a lot of people. And I know, Sean, you were recently a judge at Bagel Fest in New York, and there's some Seattle representation out there too, right? Is it fair for Seattleites to be trying to judge our scene in comparison to the East Coast scene?
It almost like you have to take a step back beyond that, because what I've seen, having spent time in LA, gone down to Portland, when I'm at Bagel Fest, I'm trying bagels from Dallas and Knoxville and all these places. And I'm talking to everybody and saying, like, what's going on locally for your bagel scene? And everybody was kind of giving me the same answer, which was, well, it's, it's coming up. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, man, Seattle's way past that. And maybe they're just being humble about it. I think what we're seeing in Seattle is what we are seeing across the entire country. Seattle, in a way, is not super unique, and you are seeing it in other places. They may not be as far along as we are. And I think that's the difference, and I think that's what makes Seattle's scene a bit interesting.
I feel like I may be like a New Yorker at heart, but I am very protective of Seattle's food scene, right? I don't think of myself as a food critic. I think of myself as a food celebrator, and I want to share the goodness. I am here to point to the people who are taking such intentionality and love and care into what they're doing, whether it's a bakery, whether it's a sandwich, whether it's a bagel. And that's where I've found, joy and a good rhythm.
Just saw our creative producer, Sam J. Leeds, pop up onto the screen to ask a question here.
What are the sort of like 3 or 4 things that you guys would celebrate in a really good bagel? I'm an amateur bagel baker myself. And I just would love to hear, like, when you're looking for a good bagel, what are the top qualities that you're really seeking out?
Ultimately, I want all of these things to be happening at the same time. But what I want is an exterior that visually is very appealing, is kind of a golden brown coloring. I want to see like some blistering and some texture. It's something that kind of tells me that when I bite into this, it's not just going to be like a dough ball. I'm going to get some crispiness and maybe a little crunch in there somewhere. Inside, I'm looking for something that is pillowy. I say tough chew in a good way is what I often say. Something that's not too airy, but not too dense. Isn't going to be like a gut bomb. And then just for me, the ultimate sign that I've found a good bagel is if I can go to a bagel place and just get a bagel, nothing else, and just walk out and walk down the street and eat it. And if I can eat it without my throat feeling dry, or I'm not enjoying the flavor on its own, then I come away from it being like, this is good. This is what I want.
And those are always your reviews, right, Sean? Like, you get a plain bagel and then you get an everything bagel, from what I remember.
I do, because for me, I always just want to get a plain bagel because I just want to know how good is your bagel.
Without it dressed up.
Yeah. And then I get the everything with scallion cream cheese or something approximating that, because that is kind of my base idea of the bagel sandwich, in its purest form, and something that I would get growing up all the time back east. And so, yeah, those are the 2 things I use to kind of measure a bagel place that I visit.
I really resonated with what you said about tough chew in a good way, because I think it's such a fine line. Like, is my jaw going to be sore after this bagel? Then I don't want it. It has to hold its shape and have a good rebound and deliver that like bagel-y goodness where like you could have your eyes blindfolded and know that there was a bagel in front of you.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that texture thing as well. Like, my husband is from the East Coast, and when we have a bagel that doesn't do it for him, the worst thing he can say about it is he's like, it's round bread. And I do think that like the chewiness of it needs to be something that differentiates it from just bread, right? But okay, before we get too much into bagels here, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to get deeper into it. Okay, so as we're also talking about the East Coast influence on how we judge these products here in Seattle, should we just create our own Seattle style of bagel? Like, I mean, they're like Montreal style bagels, right? Like, I mean, there's obviously all sorts of different styles of pizza as well. What would the Seattle style bagel be if you had to characterize it? Like, what is the special spin, or I guess like level of care that current bagel makers are putting into their work?
I was very prepared for this question because it's
Oh,
something I think about. I think about this a lot. It's a two-part answer. Not only do I not think there is such a thing as a Seattle style bagel, I don't think that there is a style bagel for anywhere anymore. Bagels in the way that they are made are kind of beyond that, because if you look at in Seattle right now, you've got people who do sourdough, you've got people who do kind of the traditional New York style, you have a couple Montreal styles. Oxbow, if in Montlake, they do a rye bagel. If you look at a Hay Bagel or a Mount Bagel, it's very different from what you're going to get at Backyard Bagel or Bagel Oasis, very different from what you're going to get at like Old Salt. And
okay.
so
Different for people who haven't had them. Like different in what way? Like how would you characterize the differences?
I mean, when I picture, say, Hay Bagel or Mount Bagel, they're very plump, very golden. And when I think of an Old Salt bagel, it's a little bit flatter, very textured. That usually the way that they bake it in an oven, there's a little bit more of that like crispy, almost like pizza-ish burn on it, which can be really nice. Backyard Bagel is a bit more of like a traditional. Bagel Oasis is probably the closest thing we have in Seattle to a New York style bagel. El Tana is basically kind of like a Montreal style. So you've got all these bagel places, and they all seem to be doing very well. But I don't know that there's a style that you can connect them to in the way that you eat them or you look at them. But what I think, if there is anything that is Seattle's style, it has to do with a commitment to kind of sourcing locally. When I think about what the Seattle style is, it's more about that. It's more about ingredients and where they come from than it is when I'm actually like going out to eat one.
I love that. I think that there is a specific quality to each bagel shop in Seattle. If you approach me and you're like, I just really love a chewy bagel and I'm looking for like a great breakfast bagel sandwich, I'd probably tell you should go to, maybe Howdy Bagel or Whidbey Island Bagel Factory. So I think it really depends, like, what are the things that you gravitate towards for your bagel experience, and then you will find a place in or around Seattle that has that thing.
No, that totally makes sense. I think, yeah, there's a huge difference between like a bagel sandwich and if you're just getting a plain bagel with schmear and hoping for the best. Zoe, I mean, you have your own schmear now. Like, how did that come about, and how did you decide what to put in it?
Yes, this was so exciting. I've been friends with Andrew for a little while now. I think I actually met him through Sean originally. We became fast friends, and he approached me over the summer and was like, what do you think about doing a schmear together? And I was like, yes, like 100% down. And then we were thinking about, okay, the time frame for this ideally will probably be fall so that we have time to workshop it and feel really good about it and test multiple rounds. So I said to him, like, the food that we're always making in the fall is like caramelized onions. Like, we are putting caramelized onions on, dinners probably 2 times a week. So he then shared with me that he's very nostalgic about French onion soup. So that became the inspiration for our schmear, the shallots and chive schmear. I feel like the response has been so amazing. It's been really fun to see. This is my first like co-created product that's in the world, and I couldn't be happier that it's a schmear.
That's awesome. So Sean, I know you got to try Katie Wilson's husband's bagels. I want to hear all about that. I feel like you were very tight-lipped in your post about it, about your actual review of it and how that all came about.
Yeah. Well, I was playing politics for the first time. Yeah. So for my newsletter, during the primaries, I sent an email out to every candidate running for office in Seattle, asking them what their favorite bagel shop is and what their go-to order is.
The important questions the voters need to know.
The things that people want to know. And I will say the first person out of all those candidates who got back to me was Katie Wilson. And she said Mount Bagel if she was going out. But she said, honestly, my husband's bagels are my favorite, and I would take them. I would put them up against any bagel in town. And if you're ever interested and want to try them, let me know. And when a person running for the mayor says, would you like to come over and try my bagels? You say yes. And so I did. And I went over to their place, and they have this, I'm just like in their apartment. They're like a normal couple. They've got a very tight kitchen, and so they're kind of moving around each other, and he's doing the bagels and she's prepping everything, and he's super passionate about it, and he was explaining a lot to me and kind of talking about his fermentation process and how he bakes them. He baked one for 16 minutes and then he baked one at 18 minutes, and he was like, you can see the difference, and this one's crispier and this one's different. So yeah, and we sat down and we broke bread, and I did ask a couple political questions. I got in there. The bagels were great. I'm not gonna lie. The bagels were really good. I don't know if we're gonna get some kind of bagel czar position now that Katie's gonna be mayor. I'm curious to see if there's gonna be anything that comes of that, because I would definitely love to have him again.
I would love to have one of his bagels with Zoe Schmear. I feel like that would be the ultimate pairing. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a food influencer. Okay, so you two have become local tastemakers. I personally have tried many of your recs, and obviously that's created these opportunities for you both. Like Zoe, you mentioned your schmear. Sean, you got to judge Bagel Fest. I want to ask you a little bit about the behind the scenes of what it's like to be a foodie about town and to be giving your recommendations out. When Kenji recommended the taco place that I go to, it was slammed for days. And I'm curious if you all have heard anything similar when you all put out a new review or a recommendation in your feeds.
Yes, this has definitely happened before. I had the opportunity to go to Fortuna a day or two before it opened. And
Oh, nice.
I think that place was going to have lines out the door regardless, but I'm sure my video was a bit additive to that line.
Up the hype.
Yeah, and Swing Sandwiches in Queen Anne, the owner Yoon told me that after I made a video about enjoying the Tab and the Italianish, two great sandwiches by the way, he had lines out the door and was selling out before noon for 2 weeks. So it is a very delicate balance, right, of wanting to hype a place up where there's something special and attention should be paid, but also not wanting to overwhelm that business owner. So it's tricky. I try to always give a heads up when I'm walking out, and I just say, hey, like, I am Zoe. I make videos about bagels, sandwiches, and pizza around Seattle. I'm going to post this. Here's roughly around when I'm going to post it. And usually people are excited, which is great because that loop of feedback is sort of why I love doing this, because you get to hear about the impact that it had for that business and putting it on more people's radar, right? Like maybe you don't live in Queen Anne and you didn't know that this new pizza and sandwich shop that's focused on being like this neighborhood gem just opened. So that has been super rewarding, but it's also something that you just have to be careful about.
Yeah, I mean, I know, Sean, you have mentioned that people at bagel places recognize you now. Like, what has that been like? Especially as, I guess I'm also curious to hear from both of you, like, what is your approach when you try a place and you're not into it? Like, what is your reaction?
Yeah, this has always been the dilemma for me in all of my writing, even before I was doing this newsletter. Anytime I was doing any kind of critical writing, I very early on I kind of had to make this agreement with myself that when I think about who my audience is, my actual audience writing a bagel newsletter is an imaginary version of me who just arrived in Seattle and wants to know where to get a good bagel. And I do not want to let that version of me down by sending them to the wrong place. I am writing for my readers first and foremost. I am acknowledging 100% that I am writing mostly about local small businesses. There is a duty of care in there. If I find myself not enjoying a bagel, most of the time, I think maybe if it's like a national chain, I might take the bumpers off. But if it's like a local place and I'm not a fan, I try to find the things that I do like and just say, you know what, I didn't like this bagel, but I really love the place. They were real friendly. It looks like they got other good stuff. I'm going to go back for that. And so I try my best, but ultimately I do feel like I have to be honest with the people reading, because I hate the idea of somebody reading my review, going to a place and being like, what is that guy talking about? Like, and then to answer your first question, yeah, so I've been doing this long enough now, and I've interacted with enough people that that now I had an instance. I went to Bees Bagels and Butters down in Gig Harbor, and I had initially given them a not great review, and so it had been a while, so I decided I wanted to go back. And I'm walking in, and just based on me giving my order, they knew.
They
it was me.
knew. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they were. Somebody was like, "Do you want that bagel toasted?" And somebody else was like, "No, we're not toasting his bagel. We're not doing. No, we're not
So
doing
good.
that."
That's incredible. I mean, this makes me think of a few weeks ago on the show, we were talking about Bethany Jean Clement's review of Canless, and people had very mixed responses to that. You know, I mean, her job is to be a food critic, and she talked about what she felt like that restaurant could improve on right now. But some folks were, you know, kind of unhappy with that review, thinking that it was a little too harsh. Zoe, I'm curious to hear from you. You mentioned that you think of your role as more of a food celebrator. Like, have you had the experience of, you know, going to a place and not being a huge fan? Like, do you just decide not to post about it? Or like, what is your approach to it?
Yes, I have many thoughts about this. There have been lots of sandwiches that I went and tried. I was really excited about. I was in like my filming mode, and then it didn't pan out. Like, there were issues with the sandwich. It was too messy, various things, and I didn't end up posting about it. I actually read The Nosh from Rachel Bell, and she said that it's about finding a food critic whose taste you resonate with. Like, not food critics aren't one size fits all. You have to find someone who you generally feel aligned with their taste level, what they look for. And I actually think Sean has done an amazing job of setting a rubric for, okay, what does he find attractive in a bagel? And so as an audience member and a lover of It's Just Shanda, I feel like we are of a similar mind of what makes a great bagel, so I'm going to trust his recommendations in the same way that I trust Kenji's recommendations, because we like similar things. So I think that's important to consider. And as a content creator who often talks about food, I really try to avoid words like, these are the best sandwiches. Like, this is the number one best sandwich, because everyone is unique. People come with their own nostalgia, their own preferences. Those things guide you to what you prefer. So I try to really say, like, here are my 5 favorite sandwiches right now, or here are some new sandwiches that I've tried recently and loved. So I really think like words matter in how you frame things.
Yeah, making it clear that it's about your taste and your favorites, not necessarily the best, like objectively, because I mean, ultimately food is so subjective. And speaking of that, we always like to end our Friday episodes with recommendations. Maybe I'll start with you, Zoe, since you were just talking
Sure.
about your favorites. I know you also just released your sandwich raft for 2025. But are there any places that you want to shout out? I mean, these can be sandwiches, these can be anything in Seattle right now in the food scene that you want to recommend.
Yeah, I really try to get out of Seattle to try different things, whether that's a bagel or a sandwich. And recently, Sean and I drove out. Sean drove out to North Bend and went to Falling River Meats. They are responsible for the corn dog that you often see at the Ballard Farmers Market. I am not a huge corn dog person historically, but this is an unbelievable corn dog. They're also doing incredible sandwiches. I ended up getting the gobbler, which is like this beautifully flavored turkey sandwich. They're smoking their own meats. They're also doing a smash burger on the weekends. This guy just knows what he's doing, and everyone should go try Falling River Meats in North Bend.
Amazing. Wait, okay. I want to know more about this corn dog. Like, are we talking just classic corn dog, or is there like a adult twist on it, or is it just the classic version is good enough?
I'd say this was an elevated corn dog. This is not your, no offense to carnivals, but it's not your carnival corn dog. This is a very carefully, intentionally made corn dog from the outside to the way the meat is seasoned on the inside. So a lot of careful attention went into this corn dog.
Okay, color me intrigued. I don't think I've had a corn dog since like maybe elementary school lunch, but maybe I'll have to go out to North Bend.
Yeah.
Sean, what about you? Are there any recommendations you want to shout out?
Well, I mean, we've talked a lot about Seattle proper bagels, but kind of on the heels, the Seattle Times actually just did a thing about some bagels you can find outside of the city. And I would echo, for as much as Seattle itself has seen a real bagel boom, just the whole region has seen some really good bagels pop up. And I would just shout out if anyone has the chance, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Howdy Bagel in Tacoma.
Yes.
If you keep going, I think Sixth Borough Bagels in Olympia is doing some of the best bagels out here. If you make it out to Port Angeles, there's Atomic Bagels, who's really good. Bees, Butters, and Bagels in Gig Harbor. And over on Bainbridge is Briny Bagels, which they're doing a lot of cool flavors and different schmears and things like that. So, yeah, the bagel boom goes far beyond the limits of Seattle, which is really cool.
I love that. All right, listeners. Well, if you all are looking for a little, I don't know, staycation, it seems like you've got a bunch of great places you can check out within a few hours of Seattle. Let's leave things here. Zoe Kahn, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. This was so fun.
Sean Keeley, thank you for joining us.
My absolute pleasure, and I've been loving the podcast so far.
Thank you so much to both of you. Also for your recommendations over the years. Like, truly, I feel like my arsenal of sandwich, pizza, and bagel places has been built on the backs of you two. So, and I'm sure that's true for a lot of our listeners as well.
Love that.
All right. Well, that's all for today here on CityCast Seattle. Our executive producer is Ashley Smith. Our creative producers are Sam J. Leeds and Liam Billingham. Post-production this week was done by Natalie Rivera, Lizzie Goldsmith, and Shannon Lynch. And our host is me, Jane C. Hu. Music is by Aaron Taylor Waldman, All the Kimonos, and Los Mocachetes, with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. Our ad music is by Donna and All the Kimonos. Listeners, we want to hear from you too. Send us your news tips, your questions, and your thoughts about the best bagel place in town by sending an email to seattle@citycast.fm. You can also text us or leave us a voicemail on the Seattle Carbs hotline at 206-880-3931. If you're enjoying the podcast, be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen so you never miss an episode. And even better, leave us a little review. You can get more local news and events delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter. Just go to seattle.citycast.fm. Until next time, see ya, Seattle.